South Africa has to protect its borders because this influx of Mozambique and a lot of 6,000 prisoners broke out of jail, and a lot of people will be fleeing to South Africa. They'll be fleeing to Malawi, and right now South Africa doesn't need this type of trouble. So this instability in Mozambique is a big issue for the security of South Africa and other Southern African nations and for their economies. But once again, I believe that it's the U.S. The U.S. and the West have been funding
Yeah.
terrorist American money or Western money has been funding terrorist groups in Mozambique for at least 3 years. That doesn't seem to be working because Frelimo basically was able to keep that in check. So now
Mm.
my prediction is that in a couple of months we'll find out that American money is linked to these uprisings in Mozambique to destabilize the whole region
Mm.
and also to destabilize South Africa, which has stood up for Israel in the Court of Nations, which has stood up against Israel for genocide, and which is helping Russia and China through economic
Mm.
and military exercises. So I think powers that are hidden in the back are responsible for this. I'm sure right now the DA is happy about what's happening in Mozambique because it's going to undermine South African government and make it look like you guys can't control the region. Now, very quickly before I go back to you, this problem in Mozambique means that the borders have to be shut and everything. And Mozambique is a main shipping port for goods for Eswatini's sugar, and for Malawi and those places that are landlocked. And it's
Mm.
going to affect the economy. South Africa is also losing hundreds of thousands of rand every day that this crisis continues because some of these trucks that go back and forth are involved in trade with South Africa. What do you think about that?
Right now, I think the priority for government is to create a camp, a way to deal with the issue by not shooting at those people running from danger. So one way to negotiate with the officials of Mozambique to say, okay, release release our people, because some of our people are still in Mozambique, like the truck drivers. Release. They shouldn't totally shut the border. They should open it at the convenience. Someone with they should like be more of cautious who to let in and who not to let out. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, well,
saying.
that's a
They
story
should
for
create a
another show.
temporary camp.
But right now I'm saying
Yes.
there's no unrest right now. I'm not saying that there's no unrest in Mozambique, but right now things were at a high pitch 3 weeks ago, and then I think last week that there have been riots in Mozambique. Not all the time. They're not too frequent, but anytime there's rioting and things like that, it pushes pressure on the border. But my thing is that if South Africa closes these borders fully, like you said, it's affecting the truckers and everything. They can't have it both ways. They have to have the border open, but they also have to have strict observation. But they don't want to spend too much money on that because they have other priorities too. So this is a big problem, which is why the SADC countries need to get their act together and come up with a resolution to this issue.
Mm,
We all know that the South African government is friendly to Chapo and to Frelimo, and they're not
mm,
going to. So,
mm.
but they're going to kind of be siding with him and support him as the president or the leader of Mozambique. But at the same time, they need to get him to sit down with Monlade, the opposition leader, and
Yeah.
come up with a solution. And also, I'm not in favor of those opposition leaders. Lawyer was killed. That's why he fled. That type of violence is not needed. So SADC
Mm.
needs to sit down. All these guys like Zuma and Becky, Ramaphosa, even
Mm.
Malema, all of these guys should be sitting down together.
But
Hold on, all these
their
guys.
silence,
Wait,
no
wait, I'm
one
not
say.
finished. All of these guys should be sitting
Okay.
down and deliberating because Mozambique is part of is connected to them. Same thing as Zimbabwe. Whether they like it or not, they're all neighbors and they're all a regional family. So they have to resolve this issue. If not, Mozambique is going to plummet and it's going to affect the whole economy of Southern Africa. What do you have to say, including South Africa?
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm taking from your point, saying, mentioning, or your Jacob Zuma, your Malema. They have not been vocal. They've been just watching from a distance, which I think it's surprising, because now Mozambique, it's our southern, it's part of us. So the Western world has
And
said a lot
if
about.
Mozambique goes into chaos, that's a security threat to South Africa, and it gives countries that are South Africa's enemies a route in which to bring in terrorists. They've already found gunmen who were probably terrorists training in South Africa in farms. in the northern part of South Africa. So this
Yeah,
issue is getting out of hand, and the leaders of South Africa need to take a proactive and not just say, "Oh, we hate the guys coming in, the Mozambiques." No, that's the problem. But the main problem is, why is Mozambique unstable? And we need to sit down with them. Also, Botswana, who has a very good leader. But all these things, they need to sit down and solve this issue, because if they don't, every country in that region is going to go under serious problems. And you can forget about BRICS or anything; they'll be economically unstable. What do you think, Sam?
yeah, because it was they say they have been flights have been had. So I think it's like it's like it's what do you call it? Something happening at a slow pace, but when it picks up, it becomes major. So now they
Oh
are
yeah,
silent. No one
it's
says
going to turn into a
anything.
conflagration. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So now they're canceling
conflagration.
flights. There are no more flights
Yeah.
between South Africa and Mozambique. What's next? It's a
Mhm.
question.
Well, I'm
It's a
telling you right
question
now, the
because
world
this
is
is
not
something.
stable. The world is not stable. The Middle East is in trouble. There's a lot of fighting. Libya, not Libya, Lebanon, Syria, Israel, Palestine is unstable. Southern Africa and within South Africa, there's a crime issue, and the government is pretty stable. But South Africa, that's why they need to keep an eye on Mozambique, because if Mozambique gets taken over by terrorist organizations and goes into chaos like Ukraine, then it's going to be cause serious. It might even cripple South Africa's economy, because South Africa's economy is also dependent on the flow of trade into Mozambique coming in and out, and on some of those ports that Mozambique has. Okay, what's on the ground? What have you noticed? Because you're in Gauteng, so you
Yeah.
haven't seen anything.
Uh,
But what are people
they,
saying on the
they
ground?
say that
What's happening on the
there hasn't
bordering
been.
parts of South Africa? What's happening? Yeah,
Yeah, it's affecting most us. In underground, there hasn't been much xenophobic attacks.
yeah,
I've been watching the local news. Pretoria is closer to Mozambique. There hasn't been much of that. Xenophobic attacks and all of that. What I've realized on the part of Mozambique, that's in a part of the part nearer to Maputo. That's where it's happening. But South Africa, there's not much happening
yeah,
because I don't
yeah.
know. But yeah, we live normally with them. They are here. We share them a meal. We share
Yeah,
them.
and I've seen some
Everything
of the
is
borders.
normal.
There are some borders, like the border from Zimbabwe to South Africa. It's not even. There's nobody to stop. People just cross. The border is very easy to cross. So, but the problem is that the
Yeah,
border had to close. When there were riots, they had to put people at the border because you don't want that violence to break out across into the country. Okay. All right. Yeah. So thank
yeah.
you. This has been a good
That
show.
should be detrimental.
Yeah. What are your last thoughts before we go? Because I thought this was a good show, but I think we've covered everything. What else would you like to cover in terms of this situation?
Or on my last parting words, I just want to say, please, government of South Africa, take this as a matter of urgency and act upon it. Do not just watch from a distance and comment on Twitter and Facebook or whatever. Do something proactive action. That's what I'm requesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
They have to be proactive, and in fact, all of Africa should be involved in this situation, but especially all of Southern Africa, because Mozambique is an important
Mm.
country, and we're not going to let the Europeans or the Westerners uh, take
To fix
advantage
our problem.
of our conflicts. So we need to be working together. All right, Sam. Thank you. We're going to be soon. We're going to talk about Shibobo. Rato's here. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So we were
Sorry
talking
about
about,
that,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
you
I
missed.
right.
just
You're gonna have to make me reintroduce everything. So basically, what I was saying was that uh, the first issue I'm saying is that, to me, it's clear that the U.S. and West, they're doing the same playbook that they did in Ukraine, that they did. Where else was it? Where there was a breakout, where there's color revolutions. They do it in Syria. So there's problems in Mozambique because Frelimo has been running for 50 years, and we know Frelimo is probably corrupt, just like ANC. But this, and they
Mm.
probably didn't win. The guy didn't win 70 to 30%. My guess is he probably won, but it was closer than said. And they're using that as an excuse to have riots and looting in that region, and it's staying destabilized. And whether the West is involved or not, they win because this destabilizes uh, Southern Africa. And we have to remember, most likely the West was funding terrorist movements in Mozambique. So the idea is that we don't want Mozambique to fall apart, because if they do, it means that a country that doesn't have a stable socialist democratic government won't be bordering South Africa, and South Africa will be bordered by a country which is struggling with terrorists mainly. That's the big issue, which is struggling with terrorism, and who are probably linked to countries that already have beef with South Africa because they stood up against Israel, and they are helping Russia and China militarily. What do you think, Lorato? Yeah.
Yeah, it is like an interesting dynamic in terms of that geopolitical aspect that you bring about, because Mozambique, I think since their independence from the Portuguese, it
Hmm.
has been a problematic kind of like state, being that it was sort of like a socialist state under Frelimo,
Yeah.
and having a socialist state next to what was anti-communist Rhodesia in Zimbabwe and anti-communist apartheid government here in South Africa sort of made that a problematic state. So of course, there's always been sort of like all these interventions, even from the apartheid government, during the time of independence, where they were interfering in Samora Machel's government, and there
Hmm.
is still sort of like a conspiracy theory that actually it could have been the South African government that shot down the plane that crashed with Samora Machel on board.
Yeah.
Um, so fast forward to now. Mozambique now sits as sort of like a port of entry into South Africa,
Yeah.
via the border, because there is a lot of sort of like road um, freight and a lot of road cargo that travels through
Yeah.
Mpumalanga into South Africa. There's a lot of coal that travels from South Africa out
Hmm.
into the continent through Mozambique as one of the ports.
Yeah.
But also generally in terms of the entire SADC region, the economics of
And sorry to
Mozambique.
jump in real quick. This will be the last time I jump. This is important for local informal economies too, where they're trading. So it may not hurt South Africa's giant economy, but this is going to hurt a lot of poor people
Mm.
in South Africa and on the other side. If those borders, if there's
Sure,
a
sure,
rest,
sure,
if there's
sure, sure, sure.
yeah, continue.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, yeah.
So there is a lot of trade. I mean, it is like one of, along with the Durban harbor, it is one of the main trade routes
Yeah.
into Africa, like towards Botswana and towards um, Zimbabwe as well, uh, or Tanzania. So all of these kind of like landlocked, Zambia, all these landlocked countries depend
Eswatini
on
also. Yeah.
Eswatini as well. Yeah, yeah,
Their
yeah.
sugar production is their sugar economy is going to be hit heavily by this, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are all these like economic outlooks, and it is unclear in terms of um, whether Frelimo did cook the election
Yeah.
or not. But I mean, yeah, a 70% uh, majority with the amount of protests that we are seeing looks a little bit suspicious.
Yeah,
Um,
but I also have
and
a question though. How big are these protests? Because when I look on TV, what I see is a lot of folks who look like they're young people who are unemployed. I'm not dissing them, that are mad about economic issues that are just causing because they don't have an organized labor strike and all that. You get my point, which would be a sign that it
yeah,
was totally national. It's the sense that I got from I was listening to some analysts from South Africa. They say these are people that are pissed off about the economy and they know that this couldn't have been a 70-30% victory, but
so
nevertheless. The riots they said this is not a question of the constitutional rights of the country being violated. It's a political crisis. So they're trying to say that it's not clear if this is cheating or whatever, but it's clear that whether um, this guy won by 70% or by even 1% or by 30%, by 40, if he won 70-30 or even won 50-49, this is actually a sign of the unrest in the country, which is political and which is political and not and economic, not so much about, oh, we feel we've lost our voting rights. Continue. Sorry. Yeah.
And
yeah, sure.
I just want-
Oh,
Yes,
let the retro go. Then you can go after that, Sam. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
okay.
So I think, yeah, it's unclear also. I mean, short of us going to Mozambique to sort of experience
Yeah, on the ground and
uh, the,
talk to people. Yeah,
the protests ourselves, we cannot always trust what we see on like legacy media and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the fact of like the heavy-ended response from the government uh, lets you know that something is afoot. Because if these were like small ragtag protests, um, like there would
Yeah,
be a
but
response, but it wouldn't be as severe. I
okay, but
think.
let's think about it. So only 300, I said only, in the whole 3 months since this thing started, 300 people have passed away. If you look at what
Sure.
happened in Iran, a lot more. And my thing is that, let's face it, Mozambique is an authoritarian country, but my argument is they need to be. If Frelimo steps down and a Western-backed opposition leader takes over that country, it's going to fall apart. Same thing. People disappeared or were poisoned when they were challenging Putin. You get what I'm trying to say? So it's
Sure,
clear that.
sure, sure.
So my thing is that the government has to come down hard because
Yeah,
if they, I don't think people realize this. See, these are Western-run think tanks and stuff that tell people, like they told Ukraine, fight for democracy, fight for democracy. But everything falls apart, like it fell apart in Syria, or like they tried to do in Venezuela, they won't be there to pick up. Look what happened in Venezuela and Ecuador. Hundreds and thousands of people fled when they put sanctions, criminals, and came into America, and there's a criminal crisis. 6,000 criminals have escaped from Mozambican jails now. Some of them will come into South Africa
Mm.
and will go underground and do
Yeah.
crime. So my thing is that, to me, same thing with Nigeria. So this, we know, like you're saying, that the government is being hard and they're probably violating democratic rights. I'm sorry to say this, we're in the middle of a world war right now. So martial law has to rule and authoritarian. Then we can deal with with democracy and all that later. For example, and I was saying this before you came, South African leaders now need to be sitting down with every leader in Southern Africa to make sure that an agreement has come upon in Mozambique. Because if not, it's going to affect South Africa. Remember, they found Libyans in South Africa who may have been training as terrorists. Now you're looking at Mozambique, which has a history of terrorist buildup in the last 3 years. So if this thing falls apart, then it's going to affect the whole region. So even if the authoritarian government there is wrong, there needs to be a diplomatic solution in which, take the guy, what's his name? The opposition leader, Lamanla, what's his name? The
Monzani.
opposition leader, Monlane. They need to sit him down. Somebody said it, and just give him a government position or something and shut him up right now. Because right now, there are too many conflagrations around the world. They're trying the same thing in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela. Western groups are saying, "Oh, the Venezuelan elections weren't fair," and Maduro, yeah, is it Maduro? Yeah,
Yeah,
Maduro
Maduro.
is
Yeah.
not a legitimate leader. So that's why I'm saying I don't know what's going on there, but I'm seeing a pattern all over the world in places where there
Sure,
are
sure, sure,
established leaders
sure.
which go against the Western values. There's an outcry that the elections aren't fair. What do you have to say, Lorata? And then we'll go to Sam. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is sort of like the scary aspect of what we're seeing in that if there are external influences by way of the West as is usual, um, then it could be problematic. I haven't seen or read anything in terms of um, who are the backers of
Yeah, I don't
Manzani.
know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I would
yes.
say this, no, but into the US government and American and democracy now, all these American think tanks and stuff are condemning the ruling. So even though they may not be backing it money wise, it's clear to me, if you do enough paper trail, you'll find out that there's probably some soft power being used
Sure,
by the
sure,
US
sure, sure.
to get. And
Exactly,
also, this
exactly.
is exactly how Ukraine fell apart. Ukraine had a Russian speaking president who moved away from the EU, and then the US funded Biden directly funded the I forgot what they call their little revolution. Their revolution, which ended up with hundreds and thousands of Ukrainians getting killed, and a lot of Russians were killed before Russia stepped in. That's why technically, that's why they stepped in, because the U.S. basically started a civil war in Ukraine. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
quickly though, Sam was saying that this is a civil war in Mozambique. I said I don't think it's a civil war. It's civil unrest, and it's a political conflict. Would you call it a civil war?
Mm.
Yeah. It's not a civil war yet.
Yeah, it's civil unrest.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I wanna go back and my final point will be
Mhm.
this last point that you made, because as a port of entry, if the region destabilizes, then you could possibly have a lot of these entrants into like terrorist cells or
Yeah.
insurgents and things
Hmm.
like that, which is the greater danger in terms of it being destabilized, it
Yeah.
being a seaside, an oceanside country, makes it a very dangerous space for it to destabilize.
And
So
they'll try to squeeze South Africa from both
yeah.
sides.
So I know for a fact that the SADC region leaders are already meeting and discussing about
Yeah, and
about
they need to be in private. Like before you came in, they need to be in meetings right now with the leader of Mozambique and with the opposition people and come up. This is where
sure.
regional power needs to strengthen. And we were saying this before. We want an African Union, but before you do that, you have to have regional unions.
You
So
have to
ECOWAS
have
is the
regional
same
unions
problem.
that are strong.
ECOWAS is split with the Sahel guys who are fighting for liberty. So you
Sure.
see all these splits all over Africa. That's why I say, even though we don't have a paper trail of proof, we know that the West is enjoying every minute of this, whether or not they're involved. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Sure.
Let's see what Sam has to say. I know wants to get back and talk. Oh yeah, so Sam, this is
Yeah,
Lorato.
I just wanted to say,
I haven't had beer
I
today, so
think
I can remember everybody's name. Only green tea.
I think
Sam,
now
yeah.
Mm.
the
Yeah.
the police play a key and a major role in this situation. Why
Uh-huh.
am I saying police, the private security and the traffic officers, the JP or TMPD? Why am I saying so? Because a situation like this needs management. We are talking of leaders. They need to meet. Leaders need to talk. But how long would that take? The signing, all those process. Whilst this thing is happening, some of these illegal, some of them I should call them illegal.
Yeah.
They're illegally. Some of the Mozambicans are illegally occupying South Africa. So the police, the traffic, the private sector,
The
they should
chaos.
all come together and manage, and somehow
Yeah.
find those who are documented and somehow keep records and say, okay, we have 10 Mozambicans in Pretoria, we have 50 Mozambique. You know what I'm saying? So that
Yeah, but
whatever decision
I
they
don't think
make.
that's practical. I don't think it can be done. But what will happen is if this thing gets out of control, you're going to have thousands of people flood in. Then you'll see a result. But I was also saying we have to remember this is not happening every day. 3 months ago, when the elections were over, it flared up, and it may flare up again. It's not flared up right now because Monlane says he's coming back into. Is he back in Mozambique yet, Lorato? He's coming back in for the inauguration. So now you're going to see another. So now that the inauguration is coming, you're going to see unrest again. So South Africa should be on stand right now. What do you think, Lorato?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. According to what he said on his Facebook Live, is that he will be back in the country by tomorrow.
Yeah, and he's
And
making statements like "I'll take my country back." That sounds like something the West told him to say. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the one of the dangerous statements that he made is that he's going to install himself as president.
Yeah.
Um,
That's not going to help anybody. That's also that now that's
eh,
unconstitutional. We don't have any proof yet. We don't have any proof that Frelimo lied about their elections, but we now have proof this guy has made a statement which is actually unconstitutional and a violation of the rights of people. Talking about you're going to install yourself without due process. There's no, yeah,
yeah,
because it's only allegations. They're alleging that Chapo rigged, but they don't have proof. We know this guy is saying he's going to install himself. Very undemocratic. What do you think
yeah,
what do you think, Lorato? Yeah.
yeah. So I think this is a very dangerous statement and a dangerous stance for him to take.
You know who it
Um,
sounds like? It sounds like Guaido in Venezuela. Remember Guaido, the American appointed
yes,
president?
yes,
And it's the same type of thing they
I
did
remember
in Haiti
Guaido.
also, where they put say another guy in Haiti as the president when he's not. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Actually, he sounds very much like Juan Guaido.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, to just say he's going to walk in and take over the country, or he's willing to be arrested or to be assassinated and to be a martyr for whatever
For
cause
what?
that it is that he's fighting for. So I'm hoping that the SADC conversation that is happening will reach Frelimo's ears, and they'll sort of calm them down to sort of say, no, let's sit around the table and have a conversation about possibly how, because in as much as he won't be uh, the president, he can be part of a coalition government in which he
Yeah.
can be an opposition party, and sort of yield some kind of power from there. Of course, it's
Yeah. So
difficult
that
with
would be
an
a compromise.
authoritarian.
That That'll be a
Yeah, yeah,
compromise,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then both sides can say now it's not about who's running the country; it's how we're going to run the country, and they need to address
Yeah,
economic issues. But the only way economic issues can be addressed in Mozambique is with context to other Southern African countries, Malawi, South Africa. All of these countries need to come together and create an economic system in which, of course, we know South Africa is the powerhouse. So South Africa has more to lose by joining such a group, but it gives them security because if Mozambique goes down and Malawi goes down, South Africa is going to be cornered by the West. Continue. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but SADC is that vehicle, the Southern African.
Yeah, but it's just like the OAU. It's a vehicle, but it's not being effective yet. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. What I'm
not
trying
being
to
Yeah,
say is
yeah,
done.
yeah.
the infrastructure the infrastructure is there, but they need to be more proactive about showing some tangible, palpable activities that they're doing that are benefiting the region. But yeah, they do help because I think South Africa always intervenes in these things though in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this Southern African development community, I think this is a great test for this kind of coalition and this
Yeah.
community to say how can they best resolve this situation. I think they've had these kinds of challenges before with Zimbabwe as well.
Oh yeah, they've
Uh,
even had more serious challenges than this. Yeah.
yeah, and I think we've seen during someone like Thabo Mbeki's term in South Africa that he
Oh
was
yeah,
very proactive in terms of quelling
I
the
was about to
fires
mention
and
him. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, and dealing with these kinds of conflicts. I'm not sure how effective someone like Ramaphosa would be, but possibly someone like the foreign minister in the form of
yeah,
Naledi Pandor
yeah.
uh,
She, yeah,
could be
she'll
able
do,
to
she'll
steer
do it. Yeah,
the situation
yeah,
into a more reconciliatory
yeah,
conversation, because I think that is what is needed more than anything. And for Mozambique to figure out a program economically that's going to benefit everyone, so that you don't see these kinds of
yeah. And that's where the corruption comes in. I'm sure Frelimo must be corrupt, just like ANC, because
sure.
they can keep their economy simple and their port. They're helping other countries bring sugar, like Eswatini, and export it. So they don't have any excuse for not doing well. They may not be the most technologically advanced country. They may not have the infrastructure that South Africa or the minerals and stuff that South Africa and Nigeria have, but they have enough resources and enough to feed themselves and be a self-sufficient country. So I think this is a problem with corruption, most likely. You know, we have to do some more episodes to look deeper into the social dynamic in Mozambique. What any
Yeah,
last thoughts, Sam? Yeah, is
Uh,
Sam here? Yeah,
they
you're
need to
breaking. Try to
be
get closer to the screen. Yeah,
yeah. I think now, as I've said before, we need proactive action from the leaders,
yeah,
and this is what needs to be done as a sense of urgency, as soon as possible, a solution, an amicable
yeah. This is
solution
an urgent situation, and deal
by
with it
everyone
now before
affected.
it gets out of hand. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Your last thoughts. I cut in front of you. So you were saying they need to be urgent. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and I was just saying that there need to be an urgent, uh, mutual way of working or running the country, because now it's no longer about what happened, it's about how are we moving forward. So they need to find
Yeah,
a way
yeah.
and put action as soon as possible. Yeah,
Yeah, see, this is the
that's
problem because we're covering the whole continent. That's impossible, man. It's like trying to cover all of Europe. So there's so many stories we have to go deeper into. But we'll do some research on it and figure out exactly what's going on in Mozambique. You know, maybe I'll text one of the political science students and ask them to write a project for me. Let me know. Any thoughts, Lorato? Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, I think there needs to be a solution, but we are wait to see what the arrival of Mandlani into Mozambique tomorrow will yield. Whether it'll lead to arrest or lead to him being brought
yeah,
to the table for negotiations,
yeah,
because what has transpired in terms of these what the constitutional process has been after the election is that Frelimo took up his contestation and they took it to court, and the Constitutional Court ruled in favor of Frelimo.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so,
Let me tell
so
you.
they have all the cards in terms of saying that we
Yeah,
considered your contestation and we found nothing
yeah.
in what
I,
you say.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep it real. That's saying that Frelimo won't run South Africa. It's like saying won't run Mozambique. It's like someone saying that one day United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia will become democratic. It will never happen. I don't even think it's a bad thing. It's the history. This is a country. These are people who fought along with the help of China and Russia and some other people to beat colonialism, and they beat what was the other group? The one that was pro anti-communist. They beat these guys and lost a lot of blood. So what I'm saying is that this is the structure you have in Mozambique. It's going to be slightly authoritarian like that. It's not going to change. Same thing with Swaziland. It's going to have a king. So we need to understand that not every country is the same. This liberal democracy with all this voting and stuff is not going to be for every country. And whether people like it or not, for the next couple of decades, Frelimo is going to be in power. But the main thing is, what are they going to do with that power? Are they going to make sure that the country becomes like Botswana? Yeah, Botswana is doing pretty well. They have a good leader. We need that type of leadership. What do you think, Laracho? Yeah.
Yeah. I think we keep coming back to the point in terms of like how democracies can function.
Yeah.
With the best example being Botswana,
Yeah.
because even South Africa having a fairly robust political system did sort of have like a jerky election last year, which resulted in this GNU because we didn't have an outright
Yeah.
majority from the ANC, in spite of the fact that they did have the majority, and this sort of like conciliatory spirit that they sort of adopted served the stability of the country well, um, in spite of it not reflecting fully 100% the will of the electorate.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
But
but I think keeping stability is the best thing, and I think we have to acknowledge um, that what we've chosen in terms of how we are going to administer change is that we've chosen
yeah.
the slower route of administering change, and I
Yeah.
think that is what maybe the youth of Mozambique
One.
need to
Yeah.
start understanding. But of
Yeah.
course, one can empathize with the level of impatience when
Yeah.
people are going to sleep hungry, when people are jobless,
But what they
and
don't want. Go ahead. Yeah.
don't have.
Jobless and hungry.
Yeah,
What they don't want is a situation in which, and this is what in the West they treat democracy as if it's more important than life. This is what I mean. Okay, Ukraine, rather than have a marginalized
sure.
government, go to war and have your whole country destroyed and 500,000 people die. Then afterwards, you're still poor. Oh,
Yeah,
but rather than, like you said, 300 people were killed, which wrong. We don't know how all the deaths happened. Some of them were probably government killed somebody. Some of them may be looting, people fighting each other. But 300 is bad. But if you want to see really bad, see the country if it has no central authority, government or and military, which is what the West would love to see, and which it has chaos where every same thing with America. Every 4 years, your leaders are changing, and you have no central vision. Fortunately for South Africa has a very good constitution. So no matter which party's coming in and out, that constitution has to be interpreted. The main issue with South Africa
yeah,
more is just the what way are they going to go to deal with the inequality in the country, which is a corruption issue. Okay. All right. So
yeah,
yeah, we're
yeah.
out.
So
Any last
so
thoughts,
they need
Loretto? Good.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the SADC is very much aware that they need to plug this leak,
Yeah.
because it could be a leak, as we discussed in terms of
Yeah. Don't give the
insurgents
devil a
coming in.
foothold. A foothold.
Yeah, in terms of insurgents coming in, but also
Yeah.
in terms of resources leaving the continent, uh, uh,
Plundering
like,
because they don't.
uh,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, undocumented resources leaving the continent, because there's gold in Zimbabwe that could easily make it across into Mozambique and then out of the
Yeah.
continent.
You might even see stuff coming from Congo down there too, man. Up there, even
Yeah,
though it's
yeah,
far away.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, we were speaking recently about that Lobito corridor.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that fails, this could be like the illicit corridor out of which then materials make it out. We and I don't know if you saw that documentary by Al Jazeera, the gold mafia.
I haven't
Where
seen it. I need to take a look at it. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
where they showed how gold leaves Zimbabwe through the Zimbabwean airport and things like that. And I think that kind of like exposure has sort of
Yeah.
shown a light
Well,
on that
it's just like
and
the
probably
drug cartel. They don't only have one trade; they have hundreds of trade routes, so that you can't catch one area. So that's what's happening with Africa. So many different trade routes. Yeah,
yeah. So I mean if uh Mozambique is destabilized in much the same way as Libya was,
yeah,
then you could have the same sorts of problems,
yeah,
and they could then affect the entire region.
yeah,
Um, and I think when we look at what's been happening in Central Africa and in the West and in the East as well, I think the South has been the last sort of stronghold. In terms of some kind of normalization in terms of
yeah,
economic activity, even though there have been all these kinds of like ups and downs with Zimbabwe, and these ruffles with insurgents in Mozambique, but it hasn't been like
yeah.
completely terrible,
No,
as we see in the East and the West,
yeah,
places like Sudan and the Sahel,
yeah. I don't think
and of course,
I don't think it'll happen because there's too much
yeah,
structure in Southern Africa and China and Russia and these countries. There's too much stability. But like you said, the West will just try to do some take a chip off of places and have corruption and have. It's no longer colonialization, like you said. It's more like having warlords and stuff who make sure that that area is a port where things can be shipped. So it's sort of like a war of attrition where they're going to try to break down the regions, not break it down, but make sure that they're making money off of their plundering and taking advantage of the region being
that
marginalized or
yeah,
being
that is a
destabilized.
great danger.
Yeah. So
That
we'll
is
see
a
what
great
happens.
danger.
All right, guys. Thank you. Very good show. Falabi wasn't with us today. He has to do some research. I'm just kidding.